Shalom Akim. First and foremost, give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bashmi Shai, Bashma Chakudash. Double honors under the elders of Apostle Millstone, the others Green Millstone, and of course, peace and blessings under the hopeful elect. That's a serious sermon of Yahweh, Bashmi Shai, serving him with truth and sincerity. Yes, on the brother Chayaba from Zeman's Plantables Camp. Coming back with another lesson of the Spirit. Yes, so this lesson be based off of, or really entitled, "This is a curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth." And of course, when you go into Zechariah chapter 5, starting at verse 1, it goes into the chariots of the Lord. Which, you might ask, what are the chariots of the Lord? Well, let's go ahead and read it. It says, so the header, or BLB, Blue Letter Bible has a header. It says the flying scroll. It says, so Zechariah chapter 5 and 1. It says, then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, what seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. It says, then said he unto me, this is a curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that stealeth should be cut off as on this side according to it. And everyone that sweareth shall be cut off as on that side according to it. Exactly. And it says a flying roll. So ultimately what is Zechariah seeing? A flying roll in the sky. Flying roll meaning a circular object. So he literally seeing a circular object flying in the sky. So, obviously when you put two together, what would you think that is? Obviously, that's a so-called UFO. So what Zechariah, he was having, ultimately he was having a so-called, UFO sighting as they put it today. As well, ultimately what he uses seeing the chariot of the Lord. And ultimately that's what a lot of people see. Well, when they have a so-called UFO sighting. They're seeing the chariots of the Lord. When you see a pretty much an object, a flying object in the sky, super bright, or sometimes it can be, it could be kind of cloaked a little bit. But when you see this object going one way at Mach speeds and completely turn around the other direction in the instant, pretty much going the same speed. That's not no government technology. That's not no government special plane or aircraft. No, that's a chariot. Only chariots have the ability to do supernatural things like that. Even Esau said himself that these so-called UFOs are 1,000 years more advanced than what they have currently. Which, that's just Esau putting a number. Ultimately, they're infinitely more more advanced than what Esau has, but that's Esau just put a number, trying to use his numbers. But hey, ultimately, but it says verse 3 of Zechariah chapter 5, to read it again. It says, then said he unto me, this is a curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. Yeah, exactly. So this is the curse, meaning the shares aren't coming for peace unto the whole world. Ultimately, Yahweh Shai himself, who the world only calls Jesus, the Messiah, he's not coming back in peace. The scriptures say how the Lord's coming back, but to make judgment and war, basically paraphrasing. In Revelation chapter 19, the Lord's coming back to make war, or to make judgment and make war, meaning he's not coming back for peace. He's not coming back to unite all nations. No, he's coming back to deliver his people. The Israelites in the completely put in subject these other nations. The heathen. So ultimately we know as of course many scriptures say, what the angels will be accompanying Yahweh Shai. during his return. So what the ultimately the angels, what they're going to be delivering the elect, not only delivering the elect, but they're also going to be doing, whatever judgment the Lord commands them to do. Well, we're going to get the judgment right here. It says, and it came to pass after 7, so this is 2 Ezra chapter 13 and 1. It says, and it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night. It says, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea that moved all the waves thereof. It says, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him. Yeah, that man is Yahushai, again, who the world, of course, ignorantly calls Jesus. His true name being Yahushai, according to ancient Paleo-Hebrew. It says, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And what's the thousands of heaven? Well, we know that those are obviously, let's go ahead and get real quick, Psalm chapter 68. And 17, it says, the chariots of the Most High are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them as a Sinai in the holy place. Yeah, so it says the chariots of the Most High are 20,000. So, hey, imagine that, Esau's already getting scared by just a few, or what ultimately Esau reports, for the number that they give out. What they say ultimately, there are hundreds of UFO sightings per year, and they're only increasing. So I'll read again. It says Psalm chapter 68 and 17. It says, the chariots of the Most High are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them as in Sinai in the holy place. See? So what we know, thousands of angels will be accompanying Yahushai, because that's going to be Yahushai's army. The Lord's coming back with his army, which are his angels. And the angels will be piloting the chariots. It says 2 Ezra chapter 13 and 4, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number. It says, from the four winds of the heaven, to subdue the man that came out of the sea. It says, but I beheld, and lo, that he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. And ultimately, that verse 4, that's going into pretty much what Yahushua commanding his chariots to make high concentrated fire upon, again, because we're about to get it, but what ultimately these chariots have the ability to shoot it. Hey, what Esau doesn't get his lasers, within these movies, you'll see Esau using these lasers, especially, literally he'll put in your face of a so-called UFO shooting lasers. So this is exactly where they're getting it from. But verse 5, it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. It says, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. Yeah, and ultimately we know how the militaries will literally try to take down Yahushai. It's no coincidence why they're trying to prepare the Space Force. It says, verse 6, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, it says, and flew up upon it. But I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. So this Ezra is describing this huge object he was seeing in the sky. And ultimately what the elder apostle Dahar, he was bringing out, what pretty much he did, linked it up onto Mount Everest, because, Mount Everest is massive. So imagine you seeing Mount Everest just, up in the sky. Obviously, you won't be able to see the ends of it. Or somebody, if you just go to Mount Everest and you go right in front of it, obviously you won't be able to see the ends of it. So that's how Ezra's, was seeing Yahushua's chariot. He couldn't see the ends of it. It says, verse 8, 2 chapter 13, In 8 it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which are gathered together to subdue him were so afraid, and yet there is fight. And these are the militaries that try to fight against Yahushua. Their fighter jets and their helicopters and whatever weapon they're trying to use to try to fight against the Lord. But ultimately, they're going to be so afraid, and ultimately, the Lord's going to put the spirit on them to fight. The Lord going to put the spirit on them to fight. Then they will surrender. But ultimately, what the Lord wants, this is what Yahweh Bashim Yahshua wants. As the scripture said, the Lord he's a man of war. It says verse 9, and lo, as it says, second in chapter 13:9, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. It says, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempest. It says and ultimately this Yahushua commanding his chariots. This isn't literally Yahushua breathing out fire from his mouth, but this Yahushua putting his spirit on his chariots, just like it, putting his commanding his angels that are piloting their own chariots to shoot high concentrated fire. And what we're about to get that what this energy is, this energy, pretty much what this energy is. It says verse 11. So second in chapter 13:11, it says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest. So imagine all that mixes together. What it says, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight. It says, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden it says innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. Exactly. So this literally, the military is being vaporized by the lasers that these chariots will be able to shoot. So yeah, and that's why you go back to Zechariah chapter 5:3. It says, then said he unto me, this is a curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. See, so that's why it says, for everyone that stealeth should be cut off as on according. It's like it says, as on this side according to it, and everyone that sweareth should be cut off as on that side according to it. Exactly. So we just got more on how the so-called UFO, as these people call it, UFO, which is really chariot of the Lord, it's a curse unto the world. It's a blessing for the elect, but it's a curse unto the world. The wicked. Because obviously the chariots is not going to be delivering them. So the chariots are only going to be delivering the elect. Yahweh Bashim Yahshua is going to send the chariots to only deliver the elect. And So again, ultimately the chariots are only going to deliver the elect, but they're going to put out judgment to whomever the Lord wants to taste of that judgment of the laser. So it says, let's get real quick. Ezekiel chapter 1:15, it says, now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon earth, by the living creatures with his four faces. And when you go into the chapters, go into the angels. But what also goes into this wheel, it says, verse 16, the appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of a beryl. And they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. Exactly. So this is going into, again, the so-called UFO. I mean, obviously, when you look at so-called UFO, well, they have the outer, pretty much a circle around them. Then you'll see, the inner part within it that's also circular. So again, Ezekiel, he was saying the same thing. Well, basically, he was seeing, again, the same exact things, the same exact so-called UFOs that we see today, which again are the chariots of the Lord. It says, verse 17, it says, yeah, when they went upon their four sides, and they turned not when they went. Yeah, meaning they're super agile. Well, when you get this in the NLT, it says the beings could move in any of the four directions they faced without turning as they moved. Yeah, so that's again, the chariots. Well, ultimately, that's what they're able to do. Get it real quick. Matthew chapter 24 and 30. It says, verse 29 says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven, it's like it says, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Verse 30, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. It says, and they shall see the sun, it's like it says, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Yeah, and this is going into Yahushua's return. It says, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, meaning it's not going to be, again, when the Lord comes back, it's going to be a day of darkness. It's not going to be a day of light and happiness and pretty much rejoicing. I mean, yeah, for the elect are going to be rejoicing. But, what the rest of the people of the world, they're going to be mourning. It says, verse 31, and it says, and he shall send his angels with the sound of, it says, with a great sound of a trumpet. Read it again, it says, Matthew chapter 24, 31, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And that's going to the chariots. But going into what the Lord, again, sending his angels and their chariots to deliver the elect, gathering together the elect. It doesn't say the whole world. It says the elect, this is referring on to the remnant of Israel, as the scriptures constantly go into the remnant of Israel, who the Lord has predestined. The Lord won't save all Israelites on this side. The Lord's only going to save only what the elect will receive salvation. And of course, the rest of Israel will come back in the kingdom under the seed of the elect Israelites. So yeah, I believe it's a point. Just want to get that out real quick. Yes, this is a curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. So, well, of course, sometimes you'll see just people taking the so-called UFOs for as if it's a light thing. Some people make jokes, pretty much saying, mocking, saying aliens are going to come to invade us, and just a whole bunch of madness. But ultimately, this is the curse that goeth forth. Read again, yeah. Yeah, this is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. Yep, there you have it. So Zechariah chapter 5 and 3. Then said he unto me, this is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. So yeah, there you have it. So Lord, are you brothers that edified? Yahweh Bashmi Al Shah, Bashmi Kakudash Thumb. Shalom.